So a year or so ago, you gave me a piece of advice that's really stuck in my head ever since. It means a lot to me. I want to know what it means to you. You said, Scott, keep making a ruckus. What does that mean?
You know, I've been thinking a bunch about what it is that I do when I do my best work, and I want to tell two little asides. When my son was 6 years old, he climbed up a 12-foot diving board to jump off, but he got scared at the top, and he didn't jump off, and I wouldn't let him climb down because he climbed back up. So after half an hour, he finally jumped off, and what he did instantly was get back up onto the diving board to do it again. What happened? Why was it that the first time it was something he couldn't possibly do, and then he wanted to do it again, right? And the reason is that there is this moment that we have, this feeling that we get when we're about to do something that might not work. I think that feeling is what it is to be a human, what it is to make art, what it is to make a difference. And some people have never felt that feeling. So part of my job is to provoke people into feeling that possibility. And then sometimes we do it a few times and we get exhausted, or we get scared, or we get safe. And so my note to you was basically saying, you hit a home run. I mean, the people in this room are unbelievable. They're doing really thoughtful work with care, thinking deeply about it. And you've connected this tribe of people online and off. And it's easy to say, okay, I'm done. But I think that we are at our best when we say, no, I'm going to dig in and do something else again, something that might not work.
Well, to ruckus.
There you go.
All right. So let's start with the question on the right.
Hi, how's it going?
Hey.
So today you were quoted, Tina Roth-Eisenberg had a quote of yours that basically summarized saying, to change the outcome, you need to change the circles, like the people that you interact with. And I was just curious if you've seen any great examples of this at large-scale companies with more established organizations. What kinds of things can they do to sort of change the circles?
Sure. All right, so, you know, one of the most important things that happened to me in my career was when I was 23 years old, I had a great boss. And my great boss taught me very little, but what David did was establish a standard of what kind of behavior he expected around him. And when we think about large organizations, what people who run large organizations really do is set standards. So it's easy to have a near monopoly organization that can coast for a very long time on the fumes of people who don't want to switch. But if the people in that organization establish for each other what's good enough to talk about, what's good enough to brag about, what's good enough to ship, it will change things. So I was talking to someone before we sat down after lunch, and I said, what do you do? And she told me, and it was really clear within 3 seconds that her boss was stifling any chance she had to get to the next level. Well, it's your career. It's your arc. You're going to do it for 70 more years, but the next 3 are going to matter a lot. Are you prepared to spend the next 3 working with people who have low standards, working for people who don't trust you? And if the answer to that is no, then you either got to change those people or change the lineup. And I think we owe it to our career and to the work we do to say, I need to surround myself with people who are going to challenge me to go to the next level. Thanks.
Let's take a question on the other side.
Yeah, hi. I think it's really interesting to see the new types of positions that emerge at tech companies. So for example, I'm a community manager. That's a really common job now at tech companies and non-tech companies as well, but it was totally new a couple of years back. So I'm just curious what you think some new types of positions like that, you know, what's the next community manager? What are we going to see opening up at tech companies?
That's a great question. I want to start by saying that the industrial age, the one that made us as a community rich, that lasted for over 100 years, in 1927, the guys who made cars didn't sit down and say, what's next? Because they knew this was next, that there was going to be a very long arc to what it is to pioneer and perfect the industrial process of making stuff. Well, here we are in a new era, a new revolution, the revolution of connection. That connection is truly valuable now. Connection is far more valuable than do you own a machine that no one else owns. And I think that's what's next. It's what's now. That we need community managers, but more than that, we need community leaders. And community leaders are really different than community managers. When we think about people like growth hackers and people who are trying to interact in a world where advertising doesn't work so well anymore, all of these people are doing variations of the same thing, connecting human beings to each other around ideas that we care about. I don't think we should hold our breath to figure out what's next. I think we ought to get a lot better at that because it's really early days, day one. Thanks.
So in your latest book, you talk a lot about treating your work as a form of art. And in this room, there's a lot of actual artists and designers who that is their work. And so I'm curious what you think the role of artists and designers will be in the creative economy going forward.
Thank you for giving me a sweet spot question here. I think there are people, probably not in this room, but there are people who call themselves artists and designers who are not doing art. That they are working at a job doing an output that might be pretty. That in China, there's a village called Dafan, where the factory workers work all day painting the same painting over and over and over again. You can buy the Mona Lisa in Dafan for $29. But it's not the Mona Lisa. It's a copy of the Mona Lisa. It's worth less than $29. Everyone here has heard of Jackson Pollock, right? You may not know that Jackson Pollock had a brother, Charles, and that Charles Pollock was a painter. He was not an artist, and that's why you've never heard of him, because he painted just like his teacher, Thomas Hart Benton, painted. Indistinguishable work. And so there was no risk there. There was no sense of this might not work. He was a painter. Well, you may know how to use fancy online graphic design tools. You may know how to play at a totally different level than other people do online. But if there isn't that leap that leads to connection, it doesn't matter if you're a car mechanic or a graphic designer, you're not making art. So the essence of what I was arguing for in Icarus is this thinking that says the only thing we're going to pay people for going forward, and the thing that we're going to respect the most, are human beings who figure out how to take what they've got, the tools they have, and somehow create a new thing that will offend some people, that will only appeal to the weird, that might not work, that scares us a great deal. Because that is why we built all this stuff. We didn't build it because we need more beautiful, laid out menus. We need it because people want to be touched, they want to be noticed, they want to be connected. Thank you.
Huge fan of your books, bought a lot of copies and given them away. Specifically with tribes, do you have any principles for helping with a tribe that isn't naturally congregating to help get them together?
Okay, I would start by challenging why that's where I should start, right? That there are so many tribes that are naturally congregating together. It's not clear that we should begin by saying, here's a whole group of people who have no inclination to connect with one another, let's do that. So for example, this is a design community. But there were design communities before he showed up. So that's why this was a smart business. Because people in this community like talking to each other. They like connecting. And that's why certain things go viral online, because there are certain things we like to talk about. It's why it's very hard to grow a massage parlor business, because no one looks at someone and says, oh, it looks like you just got a nice massage. Whereas if you have a hairdressing thing, you know, people will, oh, where'd you get your hair done? Oh, okay, we can talk, I'm told. Then people will talk about that. So that's my cop-out answer to your question. The second half of it, though, is someone usually does figure out how to connect